We should be good. Is it red, green, blue, white, yellow?
Red, green, RGB.
Yeah, I got
red,
RGB
green,
just fine.
Okay, white, yellow, yeah. Okay. I was waiting to start that. That's good. We're stringing again. Yep. Yeah, it's not on.
Check, check, check.
You're not on.
Check.
Everything's down. The master's down.
Oh, okay. But I wanted to see that you were getting enough to even record it in here. Are you getting enough on this one?
Yeah, actually.
Okay, that's what I needed. Perfect.
That's might be hot.
You ready?
So I want to apologize to Dr. Taylor that I have a nutty friend.
Well, like I said,
I didn't know he was going to come marching back
threw me
here.
for a loop when he came running in here. I was like, oh.
I thought he might come in before, but it didn't.
Not after.
You recording this one too?
Yeah.
Yep.
We're broadcasting and recording. Carl. Dennis came back here.
Yeah.
Recordings.
Yeah. He's got a nice setup. You've been in his?
Yeah.
You've been in there? It's
He
nice
usually
out.
comes to the high school and talks to the kids.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
I've been there once. It's probably been over a year ago.
Yeah, that's how I know it's from. Hold on just a second. Wow. I'm trying to choose my shot. Okay, we're gonna start like that.
Yeah. Then you can do a wide shot for a while from straight back.
I'll show you what I do over there.
As long as you know what it is.
I was trying to do
Need to have opportunity to offer some suggestions.
Yeah. That's the other way I think that's what I'm doing. I do have to say they're really good about explaining stuff if you all have the same questions.
That's good. Black magic is What's that?
I welcome everyone back. We are in the work session tonight following our board meeting. Board of Directors, I'll take an approval of the agenda. Anyone?
I move we approve the agenda. Second. Bueller.
Moved by Briggs, second by Benkin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Before we get into the discussion item for this evening, I thought it might be an opportunity for all of us to introduce one another around the table. We do have invited a couple of guests to join us at the table to be a part of the conversation. Also, for a technical note, because I see them watching, please make sure that you speak into the microphone. Obviously, for a work session, we have this set up so that we can provide a setup that is conducive to conversation, but it also does create maybe some challenges to our audio and visual. So we appreciate our staff meeting our needs this evening. So, Elisa Franzen, and I'm school board president.
Yeah, I think so. We'll give it a shot. Oh, okay. I'm Tim Taylor. I'm superintendent of school.
Luke Dirdorf, board member. Jason Horace, president, ACAC.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Galvin, and I'm vice president of ACAC.
My name is Monique Binkin. I'm on the school board of directors. I'm a director.
Chris Stenslin, Chief Financial Officer and Board Secretary.
Mandy Ross, Associate Superintendent.
Rodney Briggs,
Go ahead.
board of directors.
Gina Perez, Board of Directors.
Jamel Colton, Directora in Spanish, so people can get another version.
Louis Rosser, board member.
The purpose of a work session is really to facilitate and generate discussion. And that's what we're hoping, that there will be discussion amongst board members relative to the future of an indoor swimming pool at Ames High School or somewhere else, either way. And this has been about a 6-year process. for me anyway, and for many members who are currently on the board. By 6 years, I'm talking about the very first meetings that we had with the city relative to the condition of the existing pool at Ames High School. It certainly is not in very good shape. We all know that. It certainly is creating some health issues. It does need to be replaced, or other options that may be up for discussion tonight. But I think one of the things that's really important is that we've been having that discussion with the city, keeping in mind that we've had a 50-year agreement with the city of Ames. The land is ours, the building was built by the city, and we share 50-50 on all operational costs. Now that 50-50 agreement will run us on average somewhere between $40,000 to $60,000 per year. Those funds coming out of our general fund, that very precious fund that takes care of utilities and operational costs, everything that is really associated with the swimming pool outside of the construction itself. That arrangement, as I said, has been going on for some 50 years. At this point, we knew that we needed to do something. Original discussions with the city included the possibility of building a competitive pool at Ames High School, and then having the city also conjoin on that particular facility with all kinds of zero depth, warm water lap pool. As time went on, the separation started to occur, just trying to get over this whole idea of operational costs. Recently, we've been involved in discussions relative to a Healthy Life Center, and that Healthy Life Center was going to include at least a 25-yard by 25-yard competitive pool. Part of the feasibility study that the city is putting together right now, or is about ready to hear the results of, I think did include the possibility of a pool that would be 33 1/3 meters by 25 yards wide. I think one of the things that came out in our discussions with the city was the cost of the feasibility study, the cost of adding that particular size of a pool to a Healthy Life Center, and how that might impact the overall cost of the Healthy Life Center project itself. In other words, it could expand it anywhere from 30 to 40, perhaps even $60 million. And that was not really a very favorable kind of solution. In the process, the Board of Education over the last couple of years has begun that process of trying to take a look at how we could, as a school district, perhaps afford to build and then operate a swimming pool on our own. Keep in mind that the operational cost of the existing pool between the Ames, City of Ames and the school district is about $100,000 per year. Any kinds of capital improvements that take place to that particular building do not come from our general fund, which makes it much more comfortable, let's put it that way. If there are projects that need to take place to improve that particular project, we can use our PEPL funds to do that. And PEPL is a levy which, thanks to the community again, supported with 80% approval, just 86% approval just recently. So that will be in effect for another 10 years. Part of that research that the city did, and one of the documents that I put in front of the group here, and we also have some extras that we can hand out here in a second if you'd like to, is one that shows a comparison with a pool that I think we visited, and I think most board members and other members really of the team that went over there thought was quite a unique facility, was the Linn-Mar Aquatic Center. It's 33 1/3 meters by 25 yards wide. It does have one movable bulkhead, which does allow for all kinds of options in that particular pool, and it provides a lot more water space than we currently have. Chris Stensland, our CFO, spent a considerable amount of time with their business manager trying to get into the nickels and dimes of what does it cost to operate that pool on an annual basis. The first column of the document that you have shows our best estimate, working with the business manager at Linn-Mar, as to what those operational costs are, which includes a little bit over $56,000 for electricity, $7,000 for water and sewer, $29,000 for gas, $30,000 for chemicals, for a grand total somewhere in that neighborhood of $123,000. Keeping in mind where we're currently at, with $40,000 to $60,000, we're about halfway with our general fund. to support a Linn-Mar pool. We tried to create an Ames equivalent in the middle column. You can see that the electric is considerably higher. At Linn-Mar, they're being charged 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Our rate in Ames is 10 cents, so that increases it from $56,000 to nearly $86,000 per year just for the electric. So there's the real difference that we see between the total and operational cost for Linn-Mar and the Ames equivalent, which is about $153,000. And you can also see the number in the last column as to what our current annual investment is from our general fund for average for operating the current pool. Again, I think that something that's really important for people to understand is we've had that relationship with the school or with the city of Ames for nearly 50 years. And for nearly 50 years, we've never really put in more than $54,000 out of our general fund in order to support that pool. To go out on our own on a new particular facility like the Linn-Mar, or specifically like the Linn-Mar facility, would cost us an additional $100,000. Not to mention the two things at the bottom. We currently provide a half-time custodian. I would throw out that the Linn-Mar pool originally started out with 2 full-time custodians and cut it back to 1, knowing that one person could handle that task. They do have a pool manager. They do offer swimming lessons during the day to elementary students almost all day long, and the pool management over there has a pretty good gig, about $90,000. We've had offers from ACAC, and most recently in discussions with ACAC, we've had discussions about whether we need pool management, how we can handle custodial things, how we can handle the chemicals in some type of a shared agreement. There are a couple examples of those that are out there at the current time, and I know that Davenport, Jeremy, that just started a shared agreement with DASH, which is the Davenport equivalent of ACAC, Dubuque, I'm sorry. Dubuque has that arrangement. They just are starting off on, I think, on that one right now and building a new pool and operating it together. We've taken a look at Ankeny, and the Ankeny School District just went into a lease agreement with DMAC for a new pool. And in that lease agreement, which is over a 25-year period, they have put in $2 million worth of capital up front as part of the lease, and then they're paying for 25% of the operating costs of that particular pool on a lease arrangement for, I think it's 25 years. Now, the operational costs, 25% are not to exceed $50,000 per year for Ankeny. We're kind of at that point right now where I think on a summary sheet, Director Deerdorf began a summary sheet, and there's really the next 2 pages that I handed out to you that are somewhat incomplete because he was asking questions of Spence Evans, and the questions are actually answered in the 2nd page. For instance, you'll notice that as he continues through the history about a municipal pool and a joint venture with the city, we talked about student utilization at the municipal pool at the current time. Spence's answers, as you can see, as he started his countdown on that, indicates that at the current time we've got, for 2016-17, the girls swim team has 68 members, the boys have 60, so that's about 128 high school boys and girls. I won't call them young men and women because that's what I really believe they are, who were involved in our swimming teams at Ames High School. We have those that are also involved in diving. There's practice 7th and 8th period because they can't get in any other time. On average, we have 12 special needs students who come in and use our pool during 2nd period, keeping in mind that that provides them with some physical activity that they normally can't get in a PE class. So it plays a very important role for those people. Other than that, the pool is not currently utilized for the PE curriculum. I can go back and remember that we had kayaks up there. We used to do kayaking. I think Dr. Ross probably was involved in kayaking when she was, no you weren't, okay, when she was at Ames High. Other than that, we begin to look at that. The times have changed a little bit, and I know that it was always mandatory to take showers after PE. That hardly takes place anymore, believe it or not. And I know that even athletic teams, when you come back from road trips, don't shower. They have on sweat clothes and away they go. So there's some reasons there why some of our PE classes in the past that had or offered swimming were eventually dropped. There is American Red Cross Water Safety. The USA Swimming is also using that sometime, and there's obviously the idea in Spence's mind is if we added additional PE classes, it's certainly going to have to add additional PE teachers to take care of that, and probably electives to work into the schedule. Not that it can't be done, it's just something for you to consider. At the bottom of the first page, which was Director Deerdorf's summary, I can tell you he was asking about current municipal costs. Those are fairly accurate, or very accurate as a matter of fact. He also asked about average capital maintenance. And you can see that our portion is generally, it's somewhere in 31,000, so we're spending about $15,000 a year on just capital maintenance for that out of the PEPAL fund. And that is 50% with the city. As we begin looking down at the bottom, after our meeting with ACAC, Jason, you and Jeremy can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I walked out of that meeting last week with the idea that if the district could contribute or increase their contribution to $75,000, we do have the potential for an arrangement with the city who realizes that they may need to use our swimming pool for some of their park and rec activities. It would also give them access to some of our other facilities that they could contribute an additional $25,000. That ACAC, the number that I walked out with last week had about $60,000, which leaves us about $40,000 short. And I see Susan shaking her head, yes, so I must be doing okay on those numbers. Either way you take a look at it, in my mind, the real threshold for us is somewhere around that $200,000 range. We're about $40,000 short, but again, talking with Dr. Misra, there were some discussions about the potential for endowment that could be tied to the school with naturally the idea that it could only be used for the operational expenses for a swimming pool. I'm kind of at that point where I'm going to turn to board president and vice president and see if they want to add anything different and start some conversation here. I think the expectation that I had here is I don't know that we'll get the answers, but I think the expectation is that we need some direction on, is this something we want to go alone on? Is this something that we want to continue discussions with the city? And last but not least, Ms. Chris provided some information that we can get to a little bit later about do we want to really take a look at the building of this pool by using a 1-cent sales tax, or what's the benefit of adding that to the referendum vote for the high school that's coming up in April. We have our impressions on that one, and part of that really rests with it. It would probably be much better for us to go ahead and add that to the high school referendum. As you will find out when our enrollment figures come in, we're going to be adding unofficially, I'm not supposed to say this according to the Department of Ed, we're going to be adding over 100 students this next year. I said that like it was really important because in the 26 years that I've been here, we've either been down or we've added 6 or 8 or 10. And I think a lot of the marketing and other things that we're trying to do with Eric and with Kathy Hansen, who really got it started, we'll be open and enrolling over 500 students next year from outside the district. It's telling us we're doing something right. And the fact that we're going to be up 100 students is really going to help our budget a lot, but it also means, believe it or not, Meeker is full. Mitchell is not too far away. Additional classrooms run anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000 each. 1-cent sales tax is a perfect place to use that. That's part of a discussion that we can have later on, but I'll shut up now and turn it over to Lisa and Luke. I think 20 minutes of me is enough.
Oh, perfect. Well, again, to dovetail on what Dr. Taylor said, he and I have been a lot more intimately involved with this, and then President Franson here lately with these discussions. They've had numerous discussions over the last 4 years on how to tackle this very complicated issue. And really tonight, my goal was to hopefully have a consensus on a direction. The city is looking to, tomorrow night, move forward with their feasibility study potentially in a different way based upon the outcome of our discussion here. And just to let everyone know, we have a wonderful relationship with the city. We meet frequently with them as leadership, and I feel we have a very strong connection. I value time with our city council members, and I feel we are a better community since we all are looking out for the best interests of our whole town. So I think what we talked about tonight is very positive in the sense that I think we can get this done based upon where we hope to go. But I'm very supportive of where the city is going right now, and just want to make sure that the public is fully aware of that. Especially with our new board members, this is an opportunity to really ask us questions because, like I said, we've been to a ton of meetings and we have a lot more information than that you have. So back and forth is what I'm looking for, and really to kind of go forward. As Dr. Taylor said, I put this together trying to figure out how to move this thing forward. The original plan was to have two options. There's an option A and option B, with the thought of we're not ready to dig ground yet on a pool, and the city was looking at doing a feasibility study on this Healthy Life Center. The potential benefit of having us partner, let alone having a better shared facility for our whole community, in my opinion, was would there be a financial benefit? Through our early discussions, a lease scenario sounded very advantageous because we could remove money out of the general fund into a different bucket of money. And so that's why we had this move forward at the same time. The goal was to remove the $60,000 out of the general fund and to PEPL through a long-term lease. And so that was probably the primary driver of why we kept the conversations open with the Healthy Life Center. Dr. Taylor and I attended meetings for at least 18 months throughout the course of this process. And the struggle at the time, or throughout the conversation, was how do we try to balance the school district's need for a competitive basin with what the city is looking for. So the conversation we heard primarily is they're looking for a recreational type facility that's intergenerational, that can support Harlan Senior Services and then provide more of a hub, a great opportunity for a hub near Iowa State University to really support our whole community. And I thought, wow, this is a fantastic idea, and I still support it. But it was always a challenge when we had to come back to the pool, primarily bringing our capital and then also the operating costs, because it would be better for our students to have it on site at Ames High for logistics and other reasons. But it was an opportunity we felt was worth exploring. We did find out in talking with our legal counsel a couple weeks ago that that opportunity is probably no longer there. So the crux of that is that if we were going to provide the capital, the $15 million rough number, we would need to have that banked going into it. And so the city, not the city, but the steering committee was very concerned if they were going to have to float our capital through a bond, they'd be looking to go to the public for a very, very large number. So our thought was, okay, we'll bring our capital and then we can help cover the operating costs going forward. But we didn't know at that time that we could not actually pledge that because we needed to have that cash on hand. And the $15 million we need is going to have to go out for bonding, whether through 1 cent or through the general obligation bonds that Chris is proposing. So at that point, we stepped back and said, oh wait, this is probably not going to work because we don't have that money readily available. And so really at this point, from my standpoint, I feel that the option of going with the Healthy Life Center is off the table because one, we don't have the money, the capital to do it, and the steering committee at this point has not been willing to want to entertain a very large bond for the whole city to absorb. So I guess at that point, are there any questions regarding the Healthy Life Center? Some other, I guess, before that, it'd be worth noting for the new board members, we've had a lot of different discussions of what else could we do. I've approached for-profit businesses as far as, okay, what if we were to have you build the facility and then we lease? We looked at those opportunities. Again, we had legal issues that we couldn't get it done. So I truly feel we've tried every avenue possible to partner, whether with for-profit businesses or with a city or other type of agencies, and it's just not there. We've reached out to Iowa State University, and they're not interested as well as partnering. So really, it's come back to our decision as how to move this forward. Through this whole time, we've been engaging Jason and Jeremy, and okay, what does this kind of partnership look like? I've been very open and honest with them that there's risks I feel with the school district taking on an operating cost that really is being bared by our students from a program standpoint if we're trying to cover the full $200,000. I appreciate what Dr. Taylor and staff put together because I feel the $200,000 number is very conservative, and I'd much rather be conservative when we look at a significant investment like this and then not hope but plan for it to be better. ACAC has been great to work with. They've come to the table with great thoughts of how do we get this done to bridge this. When I put the kind of plan together, Dr. Taylor is confident that $75,000 is a reasonable number we could contribute from our general fund and maintain the programming for our students. Talking with Steve Shanker and the mayor, the $25,000 number was the number they wanted to commit because, again, they value this partnership and this collaborative effort. The thought would be is our students would have first priority to access to our facility if we decide to build it. We'd have rights over any type of programming we need to have for our student athletes or students if it were to expand. Second would be ACAC based upon this proposal, since they'd be the largest contributing member beyond us. But the city is interested in being engaged in this. The council has not provided that blessing yet, but from their leadership, that's what they're looking to do. So really at this point, ACAC's been talking about, and you guys can jump in here in a second, having some type of dollar amount that would go to a lease arrangement, and then potentially what could be this bridge. And the endowment idea is what we kind of came to, is what could be raised that would provide an endowment into perpetuity that would generate a return to the school district to provide that gap. Rightfully so, they've been asking, okay, what's that number look like? At this point, I don't feel we're ready to say this is the number because there's a lot of stuff that has to happen. We don't know legally what we can do to set up the endowment, whether it has to go through like the Story County Foundation. Can we do it ourselves? There'd be some risks with that. Do we want to broker with another firm? Do we want to have Ames Education Foundation be involved? So there's a lot of questions that we need to still answer. But at this point, I think opening it up for questions from the board first about, okay, what do you need to know that has happened in the last 4 years that can bring you up to speed? I know some of your orientation sessions, you've talked about it, but in this session, what do you need to know from us as a team here? And then also then we can open up to ACAC and Jason and Jeremy on kind of where they think things are at this point. Anything? Okay. Yeah. What are historical thoughts?
Before we get into a couple questions, I want to clarify a couple questions or numbers. And I respect the conservative in the way that Dr. Taylor approaches, we need to estimate high in case it comes in low. And I totally respect that. And we always approach that in virtually everything we do. But on this paper you've given us, all of us, the Ames equivalent actually, and I think Chris Denslin, you had suggested that we should count on $20,000 for custodian, correct? So really when you add up that column, it's 173,000 instead of 200. The other thing that I want to throw out as some possibilities that we've been talking about for a number of months and years is, first of all, the Linn-Mar estimate for their electric. And yes, it was, and I call it estimate, it was a hard number that Chris received from them, but it was, their swimming pool is metered separately from the rest of the high school, or was it? It is. Okay, was it? Okay. It just seemed kind of high compared to some of the numbers that we've gotten from other pools, even 50-meter pools when we were looking at some of those options. But also, there's significant opportunities for us to reduce the electrical costs by using wind and solar in our building process. So, or a combination of both. In that situation, we'd be using either the bond or Pebble dollars to invest in those, and then the payback would be immediate, possibly significantly reducing that big number of electricity. And some of the estimates I've seen, it can be anywhere from, depending on what estimates we go with, or how much solar or how much wind we do, we can, whether it's 20% or 30% or 40%, it really depends on how much of an investment in electrical generation power that we want to make to get that benefit of the operational cost to be down. So we can get that annual operational costs. I don't think we can do much. We can't do much with the chemicals. We can't do much with the gas. Thank goodness gas is a pretty reasonable price right now, and water and sewer. Those are pretty good hard numbers. But that electric, we have some opportunities there in reducing the cost of the electricity for the facility, and I look forward to, you know, looking at especially the solar and wind opportunities. I've talked a little bit with Jerry about this, and Jerry Peters, our facilities gentleman, and whether that's a wind, you know, turbine that would actually be on the high school property, or whether it be somewhere on school property further somewhere else, and we just run the wire to it. You know, that'd be all something that have to be worked out with the city, and whether it would be beneficial or not based on location. Whereas solar, of course, would be solar that would be put either probably on the top of the facility primarily. And if we need more panels, then we could look at, you know, doing additional panels somewhere else. Or in addition to looking at the opportunities with what the city's already starting with their solar initiative that they've already started to offer to our us as residents. There may be some opportunities for not just talking about the pool, but the school district as a whole to get some benefits from that. So again, I respect the $200 figure, $1,000 figure, but I think we're definitely talking more like 173 or 75, let's call it, $175,000 for an annual operational costs. And then, you know, we could really go from there, in today's dollars, of course.
I have a question. How many kids are in ACAC? And then out of that number of kids, how many would you say are in the Ames School District?
We have approximately 200 kids that are in ACAC currently, and almost 175 of them are in the Ames School District. That does get some variation. Some of them are in Gilbert, but 99% of our kids are in Gilbert or Ames. And again, Sue, you could probably tell us the number better, but wouldn't you say about 170 of them or so? It just depends.
Yeah, and there are 5 kids that actually open enroll in Ames because of swimming.
And Sue's our treasurer, so.
So you kind of, I mean, the kids that are coming here are open enrolling, some of it is 100% driven by swimming because they want to be here with the kids that they swim with year round.
Yeah, speaking on some of those numbers from Dr. Taylor, at least 5 of them are probably in the Ames School District specifically because there is swimming allowed, coming from Huxley or other communities around where it is not offered.
And actually of the 170 number, over half of them are actually 11 and under. Yeah. Once I looked at the buckets, I was very surprised to find out how large the youth is of Ames schools.
That's really interesting because that's really different from the number of kids that are in the competitive swimming at Ames High.
At Ames High, of the girls of the 68, I believe there's only 20 that are year-round ACAC swimmer. Dan draws in a large number of kids who just want to swim, that don't swim year-round, but they come in and they do the whole season.
And part of that is that number we have, we actually are turning kids away at this point. We have no more space for them. We've had approximately 20 that we've had to turn away. Again, young kids, most of them are 12 years or younger for the most part, that want to take part in the sport and want to become part of it, and we simply have to turn them away. And we've done no advertising, we've done nothing to promote it in the last 10 years because we literally have had no extra space that's involved for the kids to participate.
Well, that brings a follow-up question, sorry. How many kids do you think you would attract with a new facility then? How many additional kids do you think you would attract?
Within 3 years, we would probably have another 50 to 100 without even trying, to be honest with you. There's a bump in USA swimming and swimming across the board that usually happens in Olympic years. That was a year ago. And since then, we are actually having an increase that goes beyond the normal Olympic bump. So we continue to get more kids. And more kids are looking for choices and options outside of some of the sports like football and things because parents are worried about concussions, they're worried about things. We get lots of young kids that are just trying the sport to figure out what they want to do later on. They might be in dance, they might be in swimming, they might be in track, they might be in a variety of things, and they come and go for the sport, but it gives them an opportunity to try what they want to do.
Along the same lines as Gina, this question is actually for Dan. I see you. I would like to know if the program, if we had a new pool, would you be able to make your program bigger?
Yes. This was the first year in 20 years I had to cut, and it was a safety issue. So I had 65 girls, but I can't get any more than 3 coaches. There's a lot of rules about safety per ratio. A lot of the girls that wanted to come out were late coming out because they just didn't know we started back in early August. And rightfully so. It's a big school. You come into it, you move into it, you don't know what's going on. It was hard for me to tell them, but I had no more room. And if I had more lanes or water, yeah, we'd be 75 to 80 kids at this lane. And we just can't. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, it
It's a
does.
lot more work for me and my staff, but to give a kid an opportunity is really what our school's all about.
And I know you don't turn away. You had never turned away
In 20 years,
swimmers. Okay. Okay.
By word of mouth, it's the thing to do. Kids are really interested in it. We're not like cross country where we can walk around neighborhoods. We're going to find the time that we have and the space together.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Another important thing I'd like to point out is when Dr. Taylor mentioned about the diving aspect of it, so there's swimming and diving for girls, the divers literally have to go in 7th and 8th period and miss part of the school day in order to be able to participate because there is no swim space available for them and the team to practice swimming. So Amy, the coach here, has to pull the kids out. 6 or 7 kids have to leave 7th and 8th period to come and dive so they can be completed so the rest of the swim team, the other 60 girls, can get in the water and swim at the same time. So it creates an educational environment where it's not fair to them necessarily and it doesn't allow them to fully utilize the space that should be available for all of them.
Jason, do most programs have a diving aspect to it?
Yes, they do. How many don't have a diving program in the state of Iowa?
Maybe a couple pools that it's not deep
Yeah.
enough.
Okay.
If they're old pools, but 90%?
Oh, yeah. It's like a track team not on the field. I mean, why would you not have shot put distance? Schools all around the 30.
You probably said this, but are these numbers for a 25 meter or 50 meter?
25 stretch.
Oh, 25, I'm sorry, yards.
Yeah, 25 stretch.
Kilometers, okay.
Yeah.
25.
And a 25 stretch is actually technically 8 lanes that run 25 yards like this, and on the other side of a bulkhead, you can have 4 lanes that run this way. So you can actually have 12 to 13 lanes of swimming taking place. Or you can have 8 lanes of swimming going on and diving taking place in a separate area to allow multiple groups to be using it at the same time, depending on how it's designed and costs and other things that are involved, which we have not gotten into at this point.
I'd like to ask both of you a question, and then I have a question for you and Dr. Taylor. My question for you two, I'm not a swimmer, so you're going to have to educate me. I guess I'm wondering, to me, what I'm hearing is the money. And I'm hearing that your organization is willing to kind of help the district make up the difference. And we're also talking about a decades-long commitment, at least on the district's perspective. And so I'm wondering if you could speak to the assurances about how long the commitment will be viable on your end, because I really can't see how the district can even put itself in the position to pick up that slack if your organization should go away.
Sure.
So I would say that the easiest way to look at this would be from what you've heard about the endowment side of things that Luke has proposed. And so what our goal would be to see what type of long-term sustainability we can gather through support from donors, whether that would be individuals, corporations. A lot of clarity needs to be brought to that yet. I have some thoughts and that we've discussed. Is this purely philanthropic? Or are there marketing opportunities for businesses to engage in where like they could for 10 years commit to giving X number of dollars to have their company's name up on the wall or something along those lines. And so I think that the one way that we've been approaching this is to try to show that there is that long-term commitment there for a portion of this 105,000 is through that effort. And that would be what the endowment would generate. The other part of that then is the continued success of our organization. And I think that based on what we have been able to demonstrate to everyone to this point, that's what we can show you. And that we've got a program that is growing, that is expanding. There is interest there that we cannot satisfy. We have a very committed group of coaches, parents, athletes, board members who are very interested in the long-term viability of this sport. And so you've got an organization who is committed to this, so that mixed in with the endowment piece of it that we have expressed our interest in helping and leading that effort. That's what the equation is, so to speak, that's going to show that we can do this. We're never going to be able to put on a piece of paper, I don't think, a contractual agreement that our organization can be, between 200 and 300 kids each year. I think with a pool, you hear this a lot. If you can build it, I think the kids will come. And I think that's the case here based on what this swimming community has been able to produce with the resources that we've had to date.
And Monique, adding into that, we've been around for 30 plus years. Currently at this point, we continue to be more and more profitable. And the profit isn't money that we keep, it's money that we have. And we've already set aside planning that we knew we were going to be needing a new pool. There were going to be funds required to do such a thing. The other thing to look at, some of this stuff like Linmar, that is a pool that costs $123,000 to operate. That pool is running 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. The biggest part is the electrical cost. So like I've said, if you were to, for some reason, AC go away, which we're not going to be going away, your cost would be nowhere near what it says here. You would lose half your electrical cost or more because you'd be looking at using it 4 to 5 months out of the year for the high school team and whatever the city has involved with it. So the costs here are reflecting a program where Linmar is running literally from 5 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night every day of the week. They're bringing kids in for swim lessons. They're bringing everybody in. We've never been able to do that. So we're comparing a model here that's looking at a smaller period of time. If we are really running with these kind of electrical costs and these kind of things, that's great, because you know what? That pool is being used from 5 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. Our figures we're looking at for $60,000, we'll blow those out of the water, because we haven't been able to offer swim lessons, we haven't been able to offer master's programs, we haven't been able to offer lots of things, triathlon programs. Again, from a space type issue, diving, so many issues that we could generate revenue. The numbers, again, we're using very conservative numbers right here, so we're not promising the world, just like the school district is using conservative numbers, overestimating it. So somewhere between the middle there, we're very confident this can be made up and can be done very successfully. One of the things I'd also like to point out is some of these dollars and these figures here, there's the hard costs that are the electric, the water, the gas, the chemicals. ACAC, in addition to what we're going to contribute financially, we're also proposing that we perform the custodial and management issues with it. We have 4 full-time employees that live at the pool. That's their life. Keeping the pool clean, keeping it healthy, making sure that it looks great is our #1 priority. So we can greatly reduce the amount of actual costs that's associated with this if the school district feels comfortable with us being the ones to manage the pool, care for the pool, and do those kinds of things. Currently, right now, the school district, the pool that we're running, is having a difficult time getting custodians and pool operators. In fact, we're running without one or very minimal now. So we're actually doing the work currently. So at least in the initial stages, while things get going, we are more than willing to do that. And if this thing takes off and becomes fantastic and there's money available, then we're all for hiring more help or getting more custodial or talking with the school district about the best way to move forward with this.
My question for you two is, at what point do we decide this is a useless conversation and it's just time to kill this project and move on? You know, at what level are we going to decide that, you know, I guess where's the line is what I want to know. This conversation has been going on for anywhere between 5 years to a decade, and we're still in the same spot, if not getting more, you know, ridiculous and, you know, these elaborate plans that now we're at an endowment. I mean, where are we in, at this point, just focusing on our students, trying to build this swimming pool for 128 students. And then in addition to kind of where's our line here, what are the, because, you know, with our fiduciary responsibility to the school board, what are, moving forward, you know, what are the concrete steps for moving forward? What do we need to see? Because it sounds like ACAC is a potentially fantastic partner, but we have to be sure, right? You know, we have to be crystal clear on what is expected from everyone, and really what, you know, what we're exposing ourselves to. And so I guess I need some clarity here.
Sure. And I really appreciate your perspective, Monique, because I've thought those same things, is what if ACAC were not to be present? What's that look like? So what's that opportunity cost? To me, if that were to happen, the opportunity cost is $15 million of capital to build a facility. Worst case scenario, I completely agree with what Jason says, you mothball the facility and not have a program period. The previous school board, probably 2 work sessions ago, or even the last one, had the discussion, do we want a program? And there was overwhelming consensus that we want to have a program. So that led to this endeavor to say, okay, what do we need to do to get past to bridge that gap? And that's where this endowment idea, in addition to the lease, came to fruition. The Healthy Life Center, I think it's dead. We can't move that forward. So the one thing I want to make sure we accomplish tonight is to at least tell the city we need to back out. We legally can't do what they're looking to do, so we need to provide that decision to them. So at least that gets that off the table, moving it forward. I think your discussion is warranted to say, okay, do we want to have a program? Is $15 million of allocation better spent somewhere else? My opinion is I think it needs to be spent for the swimming pool. It's a program that we have provides great value to our students. We have the capital to do it. The key is how do we bridge the operating costs. I worry about the entrepreneurial aspect of having ACAC as a partner, because they could, something happen and change direction, and then we're left with the bag. The city, naturally as a municipality, is more of a natural partner because they're always going to be there. So there's that assurance that we had a 50-50 partnership. Again, they're going to be at the table still. In the event that they move the Healthy Life Center forward to a bond referendum, it doesn't pass, they still would like the opportunity to potentially build on our site. So the previous board, and I'd like to know your opinion, always had the notion of having space reserved for the city in the event that were to happen, because again, we're a community, we support each other. Again, that collaborative effort is what we're looking for. So I feel, to answer your question, we have turned a corner. Our recommendation would be that we need to tell the city we need to back out because of these reasons, and hopefully we can come to consensus tonight. There's, as Jason and Jeremy alluded to, there's a lot more questions that need to be answered, specifically what the endowment could look like legally. What type of commitment is even out there? Is it unreasonable to say that they can't raise $500,000, and what does that mean? So I don't feel we're at a point to say, yes, we're going to put a shovel in the ground in April. But I think we're at a point now where there's more clarity in the direction. I guess speak to what are your thoughts on the capital allocation, and do you feel, from what Dr. Taylor has recommended, $75,000 is reasonable to support this program? What are your thoughts on that?
These are just my thoughts. I think 75 is really pushing the max of what I'm comfortable with. I understand it used to run 50 to 60,000. Now we're looking at 75,000, and I feel like that is really the max given the pool of money where these funds are coming from. To me, any extra dollar out of the general fund comes at the expense of teachers or salaries or raises or programs, and so those expenses, while it may sound small, I think as, you know, costs creep up over time will be meaningful. And I think with the additional potential of maybe one day having to take on a whole extra $100,000, that's what really terrifies me. So that's my perspective.
It's too heavy. I have a similar concern. If we don't have something assuring us that we have that money every year going forward, we could end up with an extra $100,000. It kind of scares me because that's $100,000 that could be teachers. So, yeah, I'm with Monique on that one, but I do feel that we need to do something moving forward. And I feel like we need to make a decision soon because we are getting more and more public input from people saying the pool is degrading, they're struggling with it. Please make a decision soon because our kids are starting to become miserable with this.
So for me, yeah, 75,000 is probably a cap that I would caution going further than. Big question is how viable is the partnership? I mean, that's just, I'll reiterate what everyone else has said. That's the biggest question mark for me because while things are great right now, I can't tell you what it's going to look like in 10 years. So if a way to address that partnership is through the means of an endowment, I think that's probably the direction to go. On the other side of it, this issue to me has always been tied to the high school project. Because we need to know if we're going to do a pool when it comes to preparing for our high school itself. Because that could completely change the dynamic of where things are placed, what they look like. We also need to know if we're going to continue to provide an opportunity to the city, because that, again, impacts that footprint. So we really need to come to a conclusion sometime here in the next couple of, I would say, month and a half to know, is this partnership viable? Can we move forward or not? Because we're talking next spring trying to pursue a bond on the high school, and it is tied directly to that.
And Rodney, I completely agree. Our goal would be to have this figured out by January. That way our language for a potential referendum would be approved at that time frame. So understanding where we're going November, maybe December is what my hope would be. But again, I think the thing we need to be cautious about is, and I do this professionally, is when I look at a business plan, I try to bookend the risk. And so the way we're looking at it is knowing, okay, worst case scenario is there's ACAC's gone, and we're left with our contribution and $25,000 from the city. As Jason, I think, correctly points out, the utilization is going to be significantly less at that point, so the operating cost and that potential risk to our programming goes down quite a bit. And so understanding, again, my push would be trying to get as big of an endowment as we can, because that just lowers the overall risk to our student programming. But the hard part is we're not at that point to say we need $500,000, we need $2 million from ACAC to give them a goal, because we don't know, for one, what's that look like. I'd rather back into the numbers, say, okay, we're going to be guaranteed a 4% return on our money to help understand what that goal should be, but in understanding what is out there for potential donors.
It would be great if we could see those worst case scenario numbers.
I'd like to say a couple of things. You know, we're not talking about some of the numbers that ACAC has brought to the table already. So let me clarify some things. When I clarified that our total that I'm looking at is 175,000, we're talking about 75,000 coming from the school district, 60,000 coming from the lease agreement from ACAC annually. And that's based on just the kids they have now. That doesn't count any growth that they may have in the future. And then this, with the city, 25, that's a total of $160,000 right there. So we're almost there. you know, very, very close. And then if I can factor in some of that solar energy savings and wind, we're there. We also can't ignore a real critical problem that has been very much a concern to a lot of our parents, let alone the future health of our children, is that facility is harmful to them. Very harmful. Both of my daughters suffer from chemically induced asthma. And it's because they spent hours and hours and hours and hours, not just swimming at Ames High, but swim in other facilities too. But Ames High is really bad compared to other facilities because it's so old. And no matter how much fans are in there, or we go in there, put a Band-Aid over this type of ventilation, it's not going to get any better. So the longer we continue to put making a decision off, the more it's going to hurt the health of those children. And turn parents away. You know, as much as parents turn away because of, you know, getting concussions, they're going to start turning away because of the poor air quality that's in the pool. Limbar's program, we've talked a lot about comparing it to it because it's a great facility. But let's also talk about their numbers in what they bring in as a revenue. Now, what we're talking about is building the pool and using it, what I like to refer to as Plan A. And that's just the way what we need it for now. The swim team, our special ed students, the city coming in and doing some opportunities with lap swim and diving, or scuba diving. And then, of course, the ability of ACAC to expand a little bit and also bring in master swimmers, things like that. That's all going to happen. That's Plan A. But Plan B is an opportunity then in future years to do what Linmar is doing right now. They use that facility primarily during the day to bring in 2nd through 5th graders to learn to swim. That's what they do every year, all year long. Then, in the summer, they offer parents and those same children swim lessons that are basically continuations of what they're doing during the school year. In the summer, they pay for that. Okay? When we first met with the Linmar, they bring in a total of $250,000 in revenue for that facility, the different ways that they use it. That's including their swim team, or excuse me, the swim club that utilizes it. That includes the way it's open to the public for different lap swim or other uses like the city would use. But it primarily comes from the opportunities and the revenue that they make from their swim lessons that are, when it signs up, the week of sign up, boom, everybody signs up, and then there's a waiting list. And they're running those swim lessons from noon, you know, morning to night, all summer long, for the kids in their community that can utilize it. In addition, they also offer it free of charge or at a reduced rate, just the same way as somebody would be free or reduced lunch during the summer. So the revenue opportunities. And I understand, and I've to an extent encouraged ACAC to be conservative about what they're offering and what they're committed to, because there are additional, aside from what they can bring to the table, there are additional opportunities for revenue that we as a district can look at that facility. There will be other swim clubs in the area that will come to us and say, hey, we'd like to rent your facility to host a swim meet some weekend. Just like ACAC has for quite a few years gone to other communities like Grinnell or other places to rent pools to host swim meets, because we can't do it here. And off the top of your, what'd you pay for the last time what was the cost of doing that?
Grinnell's around $10,000.
Okay.
For a weekend.
For 3 days. So that's real money that can go straight to your operational costs. So the additional revenue opportunities, I think, are, yes, we need to be conservative, but they're out there. They're well documented in other school districts. We need to keep that in mind. Feedback from the open houses that we had this summer were very, very clear. Yes, we need to make a decision about the pool. And not only make a decision, but it was strong sentiment that the pool should be on high school grounds. So that was loud and clear. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the $75,000. We also need to keep in mind that, boy, we've been really spoiled. And I'll have to quote Bill Talbot, who's not here tonight, and I'm kind of missing him, because he asked our attorney during a facilities committee meeting, and he's like, how do all the other school districts afford this? And he's like, well, they don't have a partner like this we've been lucky to have with the city for the past 40 years of sharing those operating costs. All other school districts pay these operating costs out of their general fund. It's just, that's the way it is. And so we've been lucky. But now we do have a very, very strong, and one of the strongest clubs in the entire state to be a strong partner. Because right now what they've been doing in essence is paying the fees to use the facility right now for the past 30 years to the city. Now that dynamic's going to change. Their fees now are coming to us directly. And that I think is going to be very beneficial for them. I think it's going to be, that relationship's also going to be very beneficial for us. Lastly, ACAC isn't going anywhere. And yeah, I can say that as an ACAC dad. But swimming in Ames, ACAC might go away, or a coach might come in here or there, but there's always going to be a coach that's going to want to coach swimmers to get ready to swim for Dan Flannery, or whoever follows him after that. There's always going to be a feeder program, just like there's always there's going to be a feeder program for our football team, just like the feeder program for our basketball, high school basketball team. Those feeder programs, okay, or soccer, or gymnastics, or volleyball, those programs aren't going anywhere. Faces might change, coaches might change, board members switch over because the parents get involved and move on, but they're not going anywhere. I feel very strongly, because I do consider the fiduciary responsibilities that I hold on this board, that we're not stretching our neck out on this. A lot of school districts throughout not only the state of Iowa, but throughout the country rely on supporting their pools by the use, after the high school team is done practicing, for that swim club in the local area to hop in the pool and start using it. And let's move on. Thanks.
On that, just a little follow-up on the revenue, because you were saying the meets, isn't that how ACAC is going to have revenue to pay us? So it's not money that we should be thinking about having for the district, because this is what ACAC, how is ACAC going to put out $60,000? I get, that's what my question is.
Sure, go ahead. Amy Pyle, diving coach, former Iowa State gymnastics coach. 10 years ago, I was president of ACAC. My son was a swimmer. At that point, we had no salaried employees. They were working for about $12 an hour, 3 or 4 hours a day. That's it. And I said, okay, if we're going to have a competitive swim program, we're going to do this right. And to provide the best opportunity for these kids, you have to have good coaches. And so now, 10 years later, we have 3 salaried coaches of over $130,000. Our former head coach, who's not salaried, is coaching the novice group, which we all know you have to build from the bottom up. So we are a program that we have not raised our prices in over 3 years. We take this very seriously. We're not going to go away. We're going to provide the best opportunities for these kids, and we just work harder and harder every year to provide for our coaches so that the children that do choose to be a part of ACAC are going to get the best coaching they can get. We do offer scholarships, I've said this before, because not everybody can afford swim lessons or gymnastics, etc., but we are the cheapest game in town per hour by far. So, do I think we're going to go away? No, we're just going to get bigger and better. Thank you.
Jason and Jeremy, could you maybe give a little detail of what is behind that 60,000? I have a cheat sheet.
Exactly.
Not everyone else
That's
does.
what we wanted to take time. Thank you, Elisa and Jeanette. Yeah. So currently we pay swim tags or pool tags to the city of Ames on a regular basis. That money will convert into money that we use to pay the school district. Right now we pay the city almost $30,000 a year total in the pool tags that we get between the fall and the summer. So essentially what we would have, yes, it's substantial money. So the money that we're actually, so you're splitting the costs with the school district and the city, but the city's the one that's actually taking all the revenue from it. They neglect to tell you that sometimes. But what happens is that each one of our members will be charged a monthly fee, like a pool tag fee, which will make up probably 2/3 of it. We also run multiple meets per year that we generate income on. The meets that Lewis was talking about, or Director Rosser, was if ACAC wasn't around, there's a line of other clubs that would be glad to rent the facility if ACAC wasn't around. There's simply a shortage of pools. So we have easy opportunities to generate that kind of money without even pushing into our budgets at all. And again, there's opportunities to stretch and do other things, but basically between memberships on a monthly basis, and again, the more swimmers we get in, the more monthly fees we have, the more money we can generate and increase that. Ultimately, we see an ideal situation here where we start with a low number that covers the costs, but we plan on this actually becoming a profit generator for the school district within a few years, to the point where we hope to reduce the $75,000 the school district has to put in through money that's simply put into some kind of a fund to offset the costs or to continue moving forward with it. Additionally, we have many other opportunities. We have a lot of people connected to businesses and things. So this has to be a little bit more thought of an enterprise type of thing. We have to go out and find sponsors, much like the school board is using the football scoreboard as a sponsorship at this point. They're generating money now off of that. They paid for it through PEPAL money, but that money is now going to help support fine arts and other programs in the school district through the revenue that they have on a regular basis. There's lots of opportunities out there. We're very dedicated and motivated. We have the means to do this. We have the intelligence. Most of the people on this board, business owners, or people that are highly committed to this. And the fact is, most of us are so committed to this, even after the time our kids are gone, we're still going to be involved with it because it's made that much of an impact in the lives of our kids and the people that we've supported over the years. Ultimately, the option is to build a pool or not to build a pool. That's what I'm hearing here, right? I can't imagine a school district like Ames High School without a pool, without a swim team. I mean, that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, and I hate to be emotional about it, but if you were to go out there and say, there's no pool at Ames High, that doesn't make any sense at all. If Urbandale High School, Ankeny High School, Waukee, all these other programs can have it, you're going to say that Ames High School is not going to have a swimming pool? It just becomes like a no-brainer to me. I don't understand why that would even be a consideration. So we have to find ways to fund this and make it happen, because as far as I'm concerned, and as far as all of you concerned, you should never even consider the fact that you're not going to have a pool at Ames High. And I think if you ask Dan Flannery or Spence Evans or anybody else that's been involved in Ames for the years and years and years, before you guys have been here and long after you'll be here, if you're actually considering not having a pool, that is the worst idea you could have.
I think I'm the only one that hasn't spoken. But that's not because I haven't been speaking for the past how many years. So I think that I'm going to play off, sorry Sue, I'm going to take your words from when we were speaking the other day about there are lots of opportunities here, and I am not going to deny or doubt that those do not exist, because I hear it and I certainly see the passion, so, and appreciate that and respect that. So I get that there are lots of opportunities for us to manage these expenses. For me, and my fiduciary responsibility of putting forward 15 million or so of taxpayer monies towards a facility, I am going to be conservative on the estimates, and I'm going to be conservative in knowing that if we believe that our leadership believes that it's $200,000 is what the operating expenses are going to be, then that's what I feel like I need to use as my guiding point in terms of how we organize how those expenses will be covered. I really would, you know, when you first came with the idea of the endowment, yes, crazy, oh my gosh, really? But I really appreciate, because we have talked about how we have to be creative here in our thinking of how we're going to pay for it. We know, I think the one thing we can all admit is that this is an expensive project. Yes, it is. Are our kids worth it? Yes. I mean, I see the wonderful things and opportunities that our kids have through their extracurricular activities. So I don't want to deny that. But I do want to challenge us as a community to really be creative. And as we look at the $75,000 that we believe we can wisely put towards us as a district, an excellent opportunity with the city showing their partnership in the 25, but then taking a look at that last $100,000 to say, what can our community do and how can they support it? If we truly are the swimming community that we believe that we are, then let's give that opportunity to our community to pursue that and see the ways that they can support that. I really would like to be able to rely on the earnings of an endowment, because it allows us to know that this facility will go on in perpetuity, or as long as a board is addressing it in 50 years that it's falling apart, right? So that is what I like about the endowment, is it provides that assurity for us. I look at your organization and I know that there is a lot of hardworking people behind it, and I appreciate that Sue is doing research on how to prove the viability of an organization. I really appreciate that. But I think that as a representative of the taxpayer, I've got to have that assurity in some way, shape, or form to know that if something should happen, I would hope it never would, that the school district doesn't have to take on that additional $100,000. I just struggle in representing the taxpayer on that. So I think I'm consistent with some people around the table. I do believe that, and I know that people have had to be so patient with these complex conversations. I get that. But I do believe that we have turned over every single stone in this. And I do believe that we need to move forward. I believe that this opportunity provides us that we can move forward and look at the ways that we could potentially put this with the high school. So it would, for as patient as we've had to be, I would like to see us sprint now in the work that we're doing to see if we could make this a feasible opportunity for us.
I would like to, I feel that it's unfortunate that we can't work with the city. I do feel that we need a pool. We have to keep it. This is, I think that if we have a good partner, I worry about the 75,000. I do worry about, because I have to worry about those things. But I feel like you said, it is an opportunity, and I do want to keep it at 200,000 because I feel like 200,000 we're even being on the low balling. I'm not a pool builder, so I don't know. But I have tons of questions. I have lots of questions, and I imagine that they'll come little by little, they'll trickle in. But I'm thankful for the money that we could get from the city. I would like to see a little bit more, but and let's see how that works out in that sense. But I would like to see that high school and that the pool coupled and as the same, because I know we'll be moving into that coupled together on a referendum.
So I guess how we move forward, what I'd like to do here is pretty much get us consensus that we need to tell the city we can't move forward with the Healthy Life Center. So is there anyone that objects to us formally pulling out of the Healthy Life Center discussion? Does anyone need more clarification on what that means? Yeah.
A little. I need a.
Okay, so
I need a little bit like why we can't.
So we can't do it because if we were to enter into a lease and they need to have $15 million in capital to put into the project up front. So we could enter into a lease where we provide an initial payment of say $15 million and then our additional payments going down the road for 10 or 20 years would be an operating costs of that portion of the facility. The issue is we can't provide that $15 million because we don't have it in the bank. We have to bond for that. And so we can't bond for money through a lease scenario. So we just legally can't. Is that fair? Okay.
So when we enter into a lease agreement to pay out of Pebble or sales tax, the amount of the lease that's structured can only be cash on hand as generated by the annual revenues for the length of the revenues that are available. So for Pebble, if we were to structure a lease payment or a lease agreement with the city, it would only be out of the estimated revenues each year for the life of that. So 2029 now for Pebble, and then the sales tax sunsets in 2029 too. But Director Deerdorf is right. We do not have $15 million of cash in the bank right now if the city needed that up front to pay for capital. And it only can go through a lease because we can't, while we're saying it's capital, it's really lease payments. It'd be lease payments that we would be paying up front for the use of that facility over a period of time. We legally can't build a building on city property. We could set up a lease arrangement for the use of that over 50 years with within our existing authorization of our taxes, and then extend that if those taxes were reauthorized. But we legally can't actually spend our capital dollars except to lease a building.
So what, just for my curiosity, so what changed then when you guys voted to go into conversations with the city? What changed?
We didn't have that. We didn't have that legal opinion of that at that point. So it was just an opportunity to think, okay, how can we creatively try to move money out of the general fund into a different bucket of money?
Okay.
So that's why. Yeah. Any other questions as far as why we probably need to pull out? Are we all in agreement that's best? So we can talk to the city? Okay, great. So then I guess the next steps, I hear Monique saying, okay, she'd like to know what would be a realistic expense number in the event ACAC were not to be a partner. So if we were going alone, we had $25,000 commitment from the city, our $75,000 commitment from the school district, what would that potential risk to our student programming be if ACAC were not in the picture? And I think Jason rightfully says our costs would be lower. We're going to have to talk through Chris or somehow figure out how we can try to justify an understanding of what that number be. I'm just intuitively very confident we'll be able to cover that with a lower amount of usage, but we need to somehow figure out how to do that.
I know that Jerry is working with some other schools right now to get information that have built pools recently on their costs. I'm not sure other school districts run quite the robust program that Linn-Mar is, and they're doing some unique things that our attorney says maybe we shouldn't be doing. But I know other school districts don't have that pool running. Jerry's back there somewhere. That other school districts don't have the pool running from 5 in the morning till 9 at night. So we should be able to get some comparable costs for what is just operating a regular school pool.
Okay, so getting a realistic understanding of if we were going alone, this is what the implication would be. I think another thing that would be helpful for the board is to, I guess, understand, and working with Jason and Jeremy, what does this partnership look like? To me, there's a lot of questions, and Jason alluded to it, this potential revenue sharing. I don't want to be in the pool business, where I appreciate Lewis's perspective of we're going to generate money. Talking with people that run pools as a living, it's a money sink, and it's not a good business to be in. So understanding contractually what that looks like. So I don't want to look at ACAC's books annually, because I don't think that's our responsibility, but how do we try to structure a potential lease or an arrangement that would provide some support to the school district should programming expand. Realistically, to me, that would be if you're utilizing the pool for 6 hours out of the day, if all of a sudden that goes to 9 hours, we should be compensated for with an increased rental rate. Again, those details need to be hammered out. Another component I think we need to provide clarity on is, okay, what does this potential endowment look like? Both structurally, what can we legally do? And then, probably more importantly, what's the capability of the community to support and have an endowment? Because as Lisa also said, that risk, the school district goes down significantly if we can bank on the fact of this ongoing endowment. But again, I think these things lead us to a direction that hopefully in November, worst case early December, we can try to decide, hey, we're going to move this forward. It's either going to be part of a high school or as a separate project. That's how, in my mind, I see this getting done. What are thoughts on that plan?
And I'm not going to get too much in the weeds on this, but there is a certain type of bond that we have to issue if we are going to have a private partner. So some of these decisions have to be made because we have to know that before we issue bonds, because of governments aren't allowed to use tax-exempt financing to provide buildings for private use. I mean, that's the short answer. There are ways that if you're working with another 501c3 that you can get around that, but that's why some decisions need to be made on whether we're going to partner with ACAC. I've already sent information off to bond council so that we can start that process, but that's another thing that the new board members maybe didn't hear in some of those conversations on how we would have to issue bonds for the pool, whether they're revenue bonds or whether they're GO bonds. That applies.
That was essentially what we talked with Ron Peeler, who was with Allers Law Firm, one of our attorneys, was relative to ACAC. What can you bring to the table? What would a lease arrangement look like? But more importantly, what would an endowment look like, and how can we handle that? It's best to go outside the district, of course. But those are just some questions that we're figuring out as we're moving forward with it. So it's that decision already has been very helpful to us to keep moving, I think.
So the swimming pool comparison, this was done in-house. Was this done what was it that you guys had 5 years ago that RG, was there something done?
Originally, it was FRK as an architect that we hired to take a look at the building of a swimming pool, and they hired then a water consultant. And there are a couple that are out there, but theirs was Hunziger Councilman, and I believe they're from Indianapolis, Indiana. When they first came back with their estimates for operational costs for a 50-meter pool, and then later for a stretch 25, they were looking at numbers that were running in the mid-300,000s. But then they didn't, coming from Indiana, they didn't really understand some of our structures here, and the fact that the insurance part, which won't be much, comes from the management fund. And there were other things that we were able to get it down to about 250,000 with them, but they wouldn't go any lower than that because they're going to be conservative. They don't want to build a pool and then have it come out to be 360, and then we come back and say, well, it was 250.
Some of it was they were building in some sinking fund payments into the annual costs, like a business would have to do if they have to replace that facility in 50 years. They were building that into an annual sinking fund as part of the operating costs. That's not how school districts work. We have separate funding sources for that. So just like you wouldn't do that if you were trying to figure out a new elementary building, how much it's going to cost to operate and how much it affects our general fund, we wouldn't then add and say, well, we need to put $5 million away each year so that we can replace that building in 50 years.
So as a board, I guess, do we feel like we would benefit from an actual feasibility study like what the city did? Is that something that if we're going to put it to a referendum, would the public want to know that this was done? This is something that that it's something that it wasn't just done in-house, that it was done by people that work in pools, that do pools. I mean, there are different things that people that do pools can do. I don't know, I've even heard that there's pools that the kids can propel when they're running, that they could do electricity. So things like that, I wonder if should be done.
Jerry's back there shaking his head. So I'm going to read it. Do you want to just come up? I'm not going to assume what I think you're going to say, Jerry, so.
I think a feasibility study makes good sense. That's going to tell you basic costs for capital costs. It'll give you a definition for operating costs. It'll also give you an idea of what type of rates you should charge for rental, if you're going to do it as on a daily rate or a complete pool rate or lane hours, I think is what the swimming industry rents it in. So a feasibility study could really help to give us a second opinion, a third opinion on what these operating costs.
How much do you think that will cost, Jerry?
$15,000 to $20,000.
Just saying.
And I guess respectfully, I feel we've done a lot of due diligence. And so to me, to make a decision, I don't necessarily need to have other opinions because we've had one go at this. We have a comparison and we've made it equated to our terms. So to me, it's more of a time element that I don't see the benefit of getting it done. I just want to make sure that we try to structure stuff, and to me, this is a great estimate to go off of. Again, I don't disagree that having a third party again look at it is a bad idea. I feel that we've looked at this so long that it's just not needed.
Didn't you just say, Chris, that you're looking at other schools that have just built pools? So doing some cost comparison with some other school districts?
Yeah, I put together a quick questionnaire asking about different features and aspects of the pool, including operating cost, size, its configuration, the deck size, building size, how it's connected to another building, how many hours they run it a day, and different kilowatt hours, therms on gas, and so on. So once we get some of that, we should be able to compare that with the operating cost scenario and get it on an equal basis with what we're looking at. So
I'd have to agree with Doctor, I need you doctor already, Director Deardorff. We've, over the course of many years, we've looked at numbers that were put together by those professionals that you talked about. And when we were talking to Linmar, when they did the same thing, they had somebody that did some estimates, and one of the first things they said when we visited them, remember, Jerry, that, oh yeah, they overestimated those by like 50%. It was like half of what they estimated. I mean, so the best numbers are what we're gathering now. And I want to thank Jerry and Chris for doing that. When I asked, no, because the best number are pools that have actually been built. So what pools that Jerry's getting numbers from are the Clinton High pool that's been up for a few years now, but it's similar in size to what we would probably be building. But most recently, the Bettendorf high schools, I think it's Bettendorf Central, actually, was that it? Davenport, I'm sorry, yeah, not Bettendorf, Davenport Central. Yeah, well, right. Well, one opened up last January. They're close to getting a full year's in. But the point is that getting actual numbers from actual pools in Iowa is going to give us the best idea of what our operating costs are going to be, instead of going to a consultant who has to kind of fudge it to be careful. Yeah.
One other thing a feasibility consultant would be able to help us is, I think what we're talking about here is, in order to be able to generate revenue, we need to have a program. The program's going to identify what sources or people will come in and use the pool, and how long and when and so on. Once you get that developed, then you know what type of rates to charge. So it's not necessarily about figuring out or estimating the national average of electrical costs for a swimming pool facility, as much as going that kind of a sidestep and being able to help
we need to be able to get a champion for this project that's going to take the bull by the horns and be able to program it and run the place. Because I think the fact is, if it sits idle, it's not generating any revenue. And so the more we can get it used, and that's, I think, where the biggest challenge is figuring out how can we get the pool used.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jerry, and I respect what you're saying, but we've got a program. It's going to get used. And actually, there's just a couple hours right now during the regular course of the school year that it isn't going to be used. It's that summer that's just a little gray area. So I think we've got the program. I'm not concerned about that.
Okay, so trying to kind of wrap this up. We're all in consensus. We're going to tell the city that we're going to move forward in a separate direction. Again, we're all in favor of them moving forward with the Healthy Life Center. I think it's a great community facility. Hopefully it'll come to fruition. We'll also tell them that we'll reserve them space in the unfortunate event that they don't get a referendum passed, that they could tack on a therapy/recreational facility on our campus going forward. Because that does lead us to the potential realization that if we want to build a pool and we want to go to referendum for a high school, we might not pass a high school. So again, I think, in my opinion, and we'll talk through facilities, is that the pool building should be separate from the high school, so it could allow for an opportunity to have the city's component on that same site. So again, that'll come out through facilities, but I just want to make sure we can tell the city formally, we're going to pull out the Health Life Center, we're going to reserve them space going forward for their potential needs. So we got that done. And it sounds like, again, reiterating, we're going to understand potential impacts of lower costs if the ACAC were out of the picture. We're going to talk to ACAC in more depth about what a rental arrangement would look like. We'll also talk to them about potential endowment of what they think they can bring to the table. We'll talk with our legal team to figure out, okay, how do we best structure a potential lease? We'll also explore various opportunities for an endowment of where we want to place that money, whether it's at the foundation, Story County Foundation, or some other brokerage, whatever we want to do. But to me, that's how we get things done to where we have a decision here in hopefully late November, early December. Is that fair? Okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to thank Luke because we agreed upon this before we came to this, because he has been so intricately involved in these conversations, more so than I have been. And I've really, in the past year, being the vice president, have been pulled in, and then the past month even more so. So this was intentional. He wasn't overstepping his ground by any means. It was just by design so that he could, through his in-depth knowledge, provide us with some little more perspective. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Don't be so quiet.
Second.
Moved by Briggs, seconded by Perez. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Passes 7-0. Thank you very much to everyone for being here and participating.
Thank you.